Hello, Wasteland! Yes, welcome back, brothers! That's right, we are here to look at Gaslands UK's Car of the Month competition for October 2023. Yes, guten Morgen, guten Nacht, guten Abend. Welcome, my brothers, to another fantastic episode of this competition we all know and love. I'm your host, James Hall of JH Miniatures, and this episode has been kindly sponsored and brought to us by John Irvine over at Modelmatic UK, your one-stop shop for all things metal toy car foreign imports. So, before we get too far into today's episode, can we all just take a moment to say a massive thank you to Modelmatic UK for their kind, ongoing, sponsoring patronage of this wonderful community and competition of ours. You guys know who Modelmatic are. I know I don't need to stand on a soapbox and start banging on about them. I mean, just look at the history with this competition and the amount of prizes they give out time and time again. And I tell you what, guys, this month is no different. That's right, we have prizes for first, second and third, and it is a beautiful array of bits and pieces and wheels and cars and all sorts of wonderful movie accurate gone in 60 seconds, you name it, it is on offer. It is up for grabs this month, my brothers. Oh yes. So as always, thank you so much, Modelmatic, for your continued support of this competition. And without any further ado, can we talk about the theme for this month? Oh yes, so breaking from tradition, every October we always seem to go down the same tired Halloween theme month time and time again. And you know what? John Irvine decided, you know what? No, it's time for something different. Yes. So we decided to take the theme of October and go for Oktober-Fest. Oh yes, go for the good old-fashioned Bavarian winter celebration of, well, pretzels and beer maidens and beer. We're talking about a lot of booze this month, boys and girls. Oh yes. I think we're all going to be waking up with sore heads and poorly stomachs in the morning. My goodness. But what can I say? You guys have not disappointed this month. And there were some caveats. There were some rules. You know, this wasn't... Okay, when people think of booze in the wasteland, they immediately think of Rusty's Bootleggers. No trailers this month. Okay, no trailers. We are not doing Rusty Bootleggers. We did that last year. No trailers. And this is a Bavarian theme month, okay, so we wanted to see German base cars, okay, so get those Hyundais and Fords and all that rubbish, get that out of here. We don't want any Fiats this month. We wanted German-made cars, so your BMWs, your Volkswagens, oh yes. So, as always, thank you, John, for sponsoring this month, and let us dive headlong into the into the cauldron of this month. We have 19 finished entrants, my boys. Oh yes, 19 finished entrants. So, from the top, we have Adam Pollard, Alfonso Naves Munguia, Aurelian Wood, Daniel Mumford, David Bousset, David Traves, Esme Grace, or Esme Grace, Hardo Pius, John Simpson Wedge, Joel Bessie, Kev Williams, Kilgore MJ, Matt Morrill, Matt Whittam, Odd Job Mod, Pierre Louis Ueder, Richard Cork, Richard Hubbard, and of course your good friend and mine from across the Rhine, that's right, William Berg. But before we get too far in today's episode, we have to talk about wooden spoons and disqualifications. Oh yes, it's everyone's favourite time of the video, my brothers. So before we get too far into it, Ian Dankin, we need to have a sit-down talk, my friend, because you have been consistently entering this competition for months. I'd go so far as to say years, but honestly, we have some issues, okay, my friend Ian, and it's not with your builds, and it's not with your quality, because your quality is, it is up there. Our issue is with the fact that you don't email in your finished entrance, okay, and you are not photographing on a plain white or plain black background, right? So every single photo you paste on the Facebook group, that is wonderful and we love it. And I want to talk about your builds because look at this half-track VW bug. Like, look how cool this thing is. I can't talk about it if you don't submit it correctly to the competition by sending it to the Gaslands email address, which is flashing up on screen right now, so you can't miss it, right? You have to email your entries in, boys and girls. If you don't email them in, we cannot count them. But we have to point out as well, Ian, that you are submitting your photos in the wrong format. It is a plain white or plain black background. Nothing else in the photos. This isn't a diorama theme month. You're not allowed to have these crash barriers or anything else. And you've been doing this for months, my friend. I mean, we go back to August with the Barbie Oppenheimer theme month. You didn't submit those photos. You got this wonderful Jeep on, the Barbie sat on the atomic bomb there, and it looks like it's photographed on a Scalextrics track, and it looks like you got some curtains or something behind it. Like, mate, just get 2 pieces of plain white paper, like A4 paper, like a letter, just put them down and photograph it. It would take 5 minutes. You did this wonderful mono-wheel build. We can't talk about that because you didn't submit those photos. You did this wonderful, during the April Papercraft Build Month, you did this wonderful alternate energy, wind-powered, sand sled. And we can't talk about it because you don't submit the photos by email and you don't photograph it on a plain white background. I can see your window. I can see a plant in the background. Like, come on, mate, come on. I want to be able to talk about your entries, but you gotta start. If you're taking part in the competition, you've got to start emailing your entries in and following the submission rules, okay? Bless you, fella. So yes, Sally, you are the winner of this month's wooden spoon. So let us start this month out strong, my brothers, by talking about the work of the one, the only member of our very own admin team. Yes, that's right, David Bousset's entry for this month. Oh yes, you're in the final stretch now, my brother. This is month 10 of 12. You're almost there. You can see the glowing haze of the finishing line on the horizon and how good it's going to feel to have done the 12 of 12. But we're not there just yet. So let us pay more attention to the beautiful car in front of us, this wonderful, very modern Volkswagen Bug that you've painted up and modelled here, which, historically has always been a very sort of soft, very gentle looking, sort of inner city, almost Barbie car, certainly a hairdresser's car, base model to build up off of. But you've made it quite aggressive and quite ferocious, and it's all the extra armour and the wonderful beer keg that you've turned into this enormous serving station at the back. Mate, you've done some good work here this month, as always, as has been come to be expected of you, my brother. But there is always things that we could work on, isn't there? There's always things that we could improve, and I've been banging on for a while now. You've got to start changing it up with the armour panelling. Stop relying on nice, clean, flat sheets of A4, white plasticard that you cut to the exact lengths that you want, and the same rivets, the same thickness of rod every single time. You've got to start changing it up. Incorporate some found bits of plastic. You take like a Lego brick and you disassemble that and you rip it apart into all these flat, jagged, torn surfaces. All of a sudden you'd have some really interesting bits of armour to put on there and build around. But you got to break out of this comfort zone. You're a master fabricator at this, but you've got to start doing things a little different. And we do see that at the back of this build. We do see it with the serving station, with that beautiful tarp effect over the rusty metal bars going into that wonderful checker plate serving station. The little beer taps, those were a bit big and a bit chunky. I would have used a thinner plasticard and maybe you could have scribbled a little bit of paint on there to look like a brand logo or something, like you get on a beer tap in a pub or a bar. But honestly, mate, as has come to be expected from yourself, this is top-notch work. I would like to see you do something about, because you use a lot of 3D printed elements in your builds, and that's fine. We love 3D printed stuff here. But you got to do something about these layer lines. I can read how long it's taken you to print off that beer keg, like the rings on a tree, because those layer lines on the sides are massive and impossible to miss, okay? And I know you've done a little bit of modelling with some cable work there, and it's just... it's just pushing this to the next level, isn't it? It's pushing yourself and your work to the very next level, and you can do it, and I know you can do it, and it's really good. So let's just keep raising the bar, my brother. This is the level of work that I've come to expect from you all, my friends. Oh yes. So as always, wonderful work, David, and I look forward to seeing what your 11th build in November looks like. Oh yes. But after David, if we are talking about wonderful, wonderful Volkswagen builds, how? How can I not talk about the work of David Traves for this month? Oh yes, and his wonderful little VW Bug tank that he submitted. Now, I'll say this ahead of time. The conversion itself, there's a lot of good things going on here. It's the paint job that is letting this build down, David. And it pains me to say it, because I love it. I love when people take cars and turn them into tanks. I think that's the coolest thing ever. But what kills me is you've done this sort of camouflage pattern, very in keeping with like the German field uniforms from back in the day. But the problem is you've got this sort of all over dry brush of silver, and because it's not really being done selectively, like chipping or just highlighting certain metal bits, it just washes the whole thing out. It just makes the whole thing look worn and weathered, but not in a good way. And then you've got areas like the engine at the back and the yellowy orange that you've got there, or maybe it's meant to be gold. This is the problem because of that silver highlighting, because some of these colours you put one layer on and call it a day, it just gets washed out and it's hard to see. And I want you to compare that with the green of the hubcaps and the wheels, right? And the brown of the barrel, carrying contraption on the top, right? The loft storage, as it were. Because the areas where you've not got that metal chipping stand out wonderfully. You can read them so easily, like that cannon barrel stands out wonderfully. And then you compare to some of the other wheel hubcaps where you've not gone back in and better defined that area with the green, and it's just washed out and messy. And it's such a shame as well, because the actual fundamental build here is a good idea. I like it. I like using the zip ties as tank treads. I like the little machine gun poking through the front headlight. There's a lot to like here. But it's the painting that is letting this down, and you just need to spend less time on that all over dry brush phase, okay? Be more selective. Lovely stuff, however, my friend, and as always, I can't wait to see what you come up with for the rest of this year. Continuing the trend of wonderful Volkswagen-based builds, how can I not talk about my boy Richard Hubbard's entry for this month? Oh yes, and his absolutely post-apocalyptic, well, it's a trike, isn't it? It's a trike that also happens to be firing these massive, I mean, they're plastic Coca-Cola bottles, but these massive sort of booze bottle rockets at the opposition. I mean, it's, this is a wild build that you've got here for us today, Richard, and I do like it. It's a little confusing, I ain't gonna lie. There are elements of this that I can't quite figure out. I think part of it is as really nice as those plastic cola bottle bits are, you don't have to use all of them at once. You could have had one or two at the front, or maybe one or two as the rockets, and maybe have one or two that have fired off. But the fact that you've got all six there, they've all got the same. I mean, you've had to repeat the same Weissen lettering like 7 or 8 times on this build, mate. You don't have to do that. There's going the extra mile with your decals and with your hand painting, which I love. But then there's making more work for yourself than you need to, right? I mean, you got the wonderful bar maiden at the back. You got the wonderful, crates of root beer in the back. But it kind of gets lost because the eye is just drawn instantly to the front of the vehicle and this massive monster truck tire and all these bottle rockets that are going to shoot off and blow into things. But you don't need that. You don't need all of that. I half wonder if this is an idea as a build that needed a bit more time in the oven, because the actual base Volkswagen build at the back It's nice. I like it. I like the wheels. I like the engine coming out from under the sides. The exhausts coming out from under the sides. I like the overall execution here. I think the blue, that deep blue works really well, but it needs to be accented like the purple at the back. That should be a brighter purple, right? Or the teal and the purple work well together, but then brighter purple, and instead of the black lettering and the black logos, do white lettering, white logos, because then it would stand out. Like the kind of the wolf's head or the boar's head sort of symbol just gets lost. It's just vanishing into the side because it's just a dark decal on a dark background and it's gone, right? But honestly, it's a wild take on this month's theme. As always, great work, my brother, and I look forward to seeing what else you have in store for us. But following the trend of rocket launching booze-mobiles, how can I not talk about new to this competition? Oh yes, first time featured in this video, what can I say? The entry for this month of Esme Grace. Esme? It's not a name I come across very often. Esme Grace. Grace, I've got to say, I love this beer stein bazooka that you've made for us with the triple rocket launcher. I think that's a wonderful piece of work that you've made there. And I want to say that the stein itself is all had to be scratch built because I have no idea where that bit's from. And it doesn't look 3D printed. Like I'm seeing elements of paper clip and plastic ring and all sorts of different bits of junk and rubbish that's gone into making that. And that is a cool beer stein. I love that. I love that as a concept. Wonderful. The modification to the VW bug is good. I like the fact that you've changed the stock Hot Wheels tyres. You've expanded the actual thickness of the tyre by using paper and card, and you've actually doubled them up. I want to see something on the actual hubcaps themselves, so they don't look as identifiable and stock at a distance. Chuck on like a little metal spike or a little disc or something that looks like a little riveted hubcap or something. It'd be wonderful. The improvised wooden armor, I'm not really buying it as much. Like the ram at the front, wonderful, because you've got the metal banding on there. It looks like it's an integrated part of the vehicle, right? But the stuff on the sides and covering the front windscreen, you need some rivets, you need some bolts or some fixtures or something, because right now those are just hovering bits of wood that are just stuck on there. The paint job, I think, the beer stein knocks it out of the park. The base Volkswagen vehicle, I love that door panel in red. I love it, love to see it when you've got mismatching bits from other cars. Wonderful. But the green, and it's very muddy, it's very rusty, it's a bit washed out. And I think, I've said it before, you could go around those panel lines. You have done that. So this is a case of, really getting in there and separating out your light from your dark, getting some highlights on there, getting some proper solid like panel base tones, because this is just blurring together in one big sort of beigey, greeny grey mess. And that's perfectly highlighted by looking at the engine at the back, because it all sort of just, all the shapes start to blur together and it becomes a bit difficult to read. And it's a shame because the back end of the vehicle is really important, because that's where you've got the loading mechanism for the three, rockets that go into the back of the beer stein bazooka. And it's so close to being perfect, isn't it? It just needs a bit of rivet work and a bit more time on the paint. And hey, it's a time crunch competition. I know how hard this can be, but honestly, love to see it. Wonderful concept, and honestly, thumbnail worthy. This had to be, when I saw it, I was like, this has got to be the thumbnail for this one. It's so good. It's so goofy and crazy, and just everything, concept and execution. I love it. It's just touching up that paint and taking it to the next level. But honestly, wonderful work for this month. Just keep going, my friend. Just keep going. It's brilliant stuff. But let's look at rounding up the Volkswagen section of this video. I tell you what, a lot of you guys used VW bugs for this month. Of course, I'm talking about our boy Matt Whittam's entry for this month. Oh yes. Now Matt, we have to make something perfectly clear. Yes, you've used the Cool Combi VW bug for VW camper van for this month, but this is one of many, many, many Cool Combis that you've used in this competition and in your Gaslands team. You have built enough of this vehicle now. You are now banned for life from using this base model. You have to start using other cars because it's, as we saw last month, when you do branch out and use other stock, base model cars to build up from, you create some wonderful things. But we are getting tired of seeing the same Cool Combi used time and time again. You got to start doing something different. So that's it. You are banned for life for this competition for ever using the Cool Combi ever again, ever. Not counting November because, that competition's still ongoing. We haven't seen your entry yet. Honestly, let's start seeing some other cars, because this, mate, as always, your scratch building work, your paint work is just to die for. Like, my goodness. I'm not getting the Oktober-Fest theme. Like, I'm getting, this is incredibly Germanic. This is incredibly Teutonic. This is a hard medieval Renaissance sort of style build. Like, I love that cross on the body of this, like the paintwork on the flags. Mate, you just smash it out of the park every single time. But in regards to something celebrating Oktoberfest, if it didn't have that white and blue Bavarian flag, you just wouldn't read it as Oktoberfest, would you? I get that the guy on the other flag has a little stein. Okay, let's go on further. If you take the flags off of this, what makes this Oktoberfest? Because a yellow and black truck does not read Oktoberfest. A gigantic minigun, which is beautifully made, by the way, that is a work of art right there, incorporating all sorts of wonderful bits and pieces and scratch-built elements. As always, wonderful work. But this does not read to the theme of Oktoberfest. It's got the colour, it's got the German base vehicle, which we know and love, but it just doesn't have the thing that ties it in. It doesn't have the beer maiden, the beer stein, the kegs of booze, the giant pretzel, the whatever it is that it would need to tie it in, right? And it doesn't have to be that overt and cheesy, right? There are other ways of making it Oktoberfest themed. It just doesn't have that. If you take the flags off it, that element of it just vanishes. But I would be lying through my teeth if I said this wasn't a wonderfully executed build, because honestly, just look at this. Look at this. Like the scratching and oh my goodness, the extra armor work and the weld lines. You know how much of a sucker I am for weld lines. Like, mate, wonderful stuff. It is big and it is beefy and it is, manufactured and deliberately made. Like, this is the thing, we've got to offer you some kind of advice and guidance, because, otherwise we just spend the whole video just gushing about how good your vehicles look, and we can't do that. We've got to push you to raise the bar, my friend. We've got to push you to challenge yourself. Let's see a build that's just like last month, that's really on theme, that's really wasteland, and isn't using the Cool Combi. You are banned from using it forever, okay? That's enough. You got enough Cool Combis. You've got so many Cool Combis now, and VW vans. You've even made one out of paper. So you gotta start doing something different. And finally, to round out our Volkswagen section, how can I not talk about Odd Job Mods and his very World War II, when Volkswagen went through their emo phase. That's right, their Volkswagen Kubelwagen that they used to manufacture, and this wonderful Bavarian paint schemed, well, beast, isn't it? It's an absolute beast. It's almost, considering most of the sort of scratch built elements on this, it's like paperclip and paper to make that wonderful folding hood, because that's a working folding hood that you've made there on Job Mod. It's almost like a paper and card themed build. I'm not sure what's going on with those Bodicea spikes at the back, those like chariot style wheel spikes, because they look like squished triangles just glued to the side. Like little dead plants that have been squished on there. Like, I don't get what's going on there. I don't get if it's something you 3D printed and it just didn't work right, or if it's something you tried to make by hand and then put on some like crackle paint. But I don't get those spikes. Whip them off, put some nice spikes on, just replace it. The Bavarian paint scheme is on point. Checkers, diamonds, it's all incredibly hard to paint by hand, so credit to you for getting that look and getting that nicely on there. The actual inside of the car is very empty, isn't it? I mean, you've got the big beer barrel at the back, which is feeding the oil slick slash. It kind of looks like something else coming out of the back of it, like someone's woken up from the night after Oktober-Fest and ran to the toilet. But the actual insides, like the chairs, and it's just really empty, isn't it? You could have had some beer stein, carrying maidens there, and I get that you look at what you had to work with and it was just an empty shell. But like, this is the thing, you could have put something. You could have put something there. You could put some little drivers and passengers, and they're swinging around big pretzels, or just something to add a bit more life and flavour to the build. Like I said, the paint job's good, the rust work is really nice. Booze oil slick at the back is a wonderfully creative take of the theme. It's just filling in the middle. And if the middle is going to be that empty, then why not just keep the soft top? Why not just keep that up? And then we'll, submit photos of it up all the way around. But then that doesn't show the work that you done. So, this is what I mean. You've got to fill that space, because I'm really hung up on it. It's not a bad entry. It just needs a bit more time in the oven, so to speak, my friend. But let us take a moment to get away from the Volkswagens and look at some completely different German brands, submitted by your friend and mine, Hardo Pius, for this month. Oh yes, and his wonderful Trabant build. What can I say, Hardo? There's a lot to like here, and there's a lot to raise eyebrows at. I think your sort of wet paint, rust chipping technique, I think that's pretty nice. Like, that really stands out against that base paint of the Trabant. It kind of gets me that you didn't change the actual base colour, you just painted directly over it. I'd love to see it if you took like a file or something and just put some deep scratches into just the sides around the wheel arches, because that would really have stood out nicely. I mean, you've got all the panel lines just jumping out at you, which is really good to see. But the fact that it is just the base vehicle that you've just painted over the top, it's a bit, it's not the best. It could have done with a bit more work there. The actual conversion work itself is fine. I do the pipe cleaner and flower bed arrays next to the giant beer barrel. I think that's fine. It's a bit silly, it's a bit Christmassy, it's a bit tongue-in-cheek, but that's fine. Brauhof signs look great, not going to raise any eyebrows there. The wheels are Lego wheels, and as we all know, that is a cardinal sin to me. I get that it can be hard sometimes to find wheels that fit. We have many wonderful sponsors that have many wonderful wheels on display. If you win this month, you might actually win some wheels for this month, as Modelmatic also do a wonderful array of wheels. But credit where it's due, you have tried to change them up as well by adding those wonderful washer spiked hubcaps. So I'll give you something there. In regards to the conversion and the wasteland aesthetic, it's there. You've got the rusty metal pipes for exhausts, you've got the big ram, there's a lot to like about this build. It's just the little finer details, and some of them are early on in the construction, like with filing and sanding and cutting some grooves into that beautiful blue paint job, and then some bits are later on. Like, I'm not a fan of trying to dry brush a sandy yellow onto a blue body, because as you guys can see here, it just makes it look green. It just makes it look like a vomity sort of colour green, because yellow and light blue, that's what they make, okay? But at the same time, I'd be lying if I said that I didn't really like this build, because it is fun and it is silly. But if we are looking at wonderfully different builds, how can I not talk about my boy John Simpson Wedge's entry for this month and his wonderfully converted Porsche 914 Safari by Hot Wheels? Oh yes, because this is a base model car that I think a lot of us skip over when we see it, because it doesn't have the classic Porsche kind of like headlights and sort of look to the body, but it is still a German-based vehicle, and it does still have the body lines of a Porsche. And you've turned it into this wonderful juggernaut of a monster truck, haven't you? Like this is something else, my friend. The paint job is just on theme. Like you've done some masking to get those sharp lines for the separation of the black, the red, and the yellow. And I love to see it, because if you don't feel comfortable doing it by hand, use masking tape and do it right, and you have done it so well, my friend. The wonderful beer maiden there hanging out the window with an overflowing beer stein. Wonderful little conversion work there. The beer stein launcher on the top there. We have been scratching our heads trying to figure out how you made those, because my best guess, it was like some clear transparent piece of like Lego or something, but it's not that. It's clearly something else, like some clear plastic tubing or something. But they're wonderfully made, my friend. Like the foaming effect on top is just to die for. As a weapon, it does raise a lot of eyebrows, like the effectiveness of just throwing full beer steins of booze at oncoming cars. Like, yeah, you probably smash some windows and hurt some drivers and passengers, but in terms of actually like blowing up I mean, it's not a grenade, is it? It's not a mortar round. But in terms of the theme and the execution, mate, it's on point, isn't it? It's absolutely on point. Credit where it's due with that wonderful front hood and the lettering and the wonderful the wonderful work there. That is a wonderful bit of execution there, John. Honestly, mate, brilliant work for this month. I love it. I think you've really pushed yourself to go above and beyond, especially considering some of the madness we've seen from you in the past. This is really grounded and down to earth. I cannot wait to see what you come up with for November's Car of the Month competition. But if we are talking about wonderful builds that have been elevated above their stock Hot Wheels and Matchbox bodies, how can I not talk about Aurelian Wood's entry for this month and their wonderful Mercedes Maybach G650 that they have submitted? Because this, my goodness, it's a brewery on wheels, isn't it? Look at the size of this thing. My goodness. It's an absolute sort of medieval tower of a build that at the same time is just blitzing the opposition with machine gun fire and quote unquote biofuel, as it were. What can I say? This is a wild build, my friend. Oh yes. I think I think the nice thing about this is there's no predicting what some people will come up with for the competition, and I love it. I love the mix of parts. I love the custom logo work that you've done, designing up that Octana Munchen Hell beer brand that you've made. Booze of the Apocalypse. What can I say? The conversion work, the spikes, the extra bits of armour taken from door panels and bits of military vehicles and wonderful hubcaps, because I love those big covered hubcaps that just cover up the whole thing. Like, mate, this is wonderful work. I mean, I'll say this in regards to being a party on wheels. I love the fact that you've got the elements of the tower that people can go inside of and like man the heavy machine gun on top that's wonderfully converted out of zip ties and Warhammer 40k Imperial Guard bits, and at the same time have like a separate brewing station where the guy can pull the tap and pour out some steins for his friends. Like, honestly, just the concept and execution here is on point. I think the aerodynamics of the vehicle would suffer a little bit. I don't see this taking corners particularly fast. I think it might wobble and fall over a bit. I mean, I'm lost for words. I'm genuinely lost for words looking at this thing. It just hits all the different buttons, doesn't it? And there's something about There's something about the simplicity of it and the way the colours work together. Some of the rust, I think, could be a bit lighter. I think it's very dark in areas. It's very sponged on, and then there's a heavy black or brown wash that goes on, and that kind of loses the texture that you've put in. But then at the same time, like you look at the wonderful flag. I think where it loses a bit is some of the fine detail work, like that ladder on the side. It looks like some sort of leopard print rope or something. That's lost it. That would have been better if you just painted it like a red, like later on at the top of the build on the same side, like that kind of deep red, so it all looks like an industrial sort of metal safety ladder. That would have been great, but because you've done this rope effect, it just becomes confusing and lost. But then at the same time, all the people look great. The fact that this thing runs off of recycled people, I think that's wild. Honestly, mate, great stuff, and I can't wait to see what else you come up with for this competition, because that is just top-notch work. Oh yes. And finally, my brothers, finally, how can I not talk about my boy? Oh yes, returning champion of the past with his wonderful Mercedes recovery truck. Or at least I'm pretty sure that's a Mercedes. Dirigible of a build. That's right, we're talking about Kilgore MJ's absolutely enormous airship of booze and discovery. My goodness, my friend. Now, I've said it before and I'll say it 100 times. Kilgore, you break my heart sometimes with your paint jobs, because you need, if you're going to do this custom lettering like the 99 beer stein flag symbol, and I think that says 99, it could be something else. Oh, it could be a big pretzel. That could be a big pretzel. It's hard to tell because you're not using a thin enough brush, or your line work just isn't there, so it's a bit wonky and it's a bit thick, and we can't, if I can't read what it is, how am I meant to give you props for it? I mean, all the little passengers are painted wonderfully. The dirigible build itself is just monstrous in size. I'm not sure about the practicality in a game of Gaslands. Like, this is very much a static piece of terrain that you've made. But I'd be a liar if I didn't say that I admired the gusto and the bravado in taking this on as a project. Like, this is a big build, isn't it? The use of Lego bits kind of kills me, but then at the same time I get it if you didn't have like a propeller or the right bits to sort of sell the booze powered airship engine look. But there is some positives to take away from here. I do like the use of cocktail sticks as fence posts. I do like the thread that you've woven around them to create that wonderful like safety net for people to not fall off the sides with. I think the twine that you've used in areas is just too big. It's just too human scale, our scale, for a build like this, because the reality is rope in their scale would be more like the thread on the railings. It would not be this massive rope that you've got there. Like, that is too big. It's just, you could have unthreaded that a bit, because you can see it's double twine. You could have just like split that off and used like thinner rope for it. Like, the actual truck here vanishes into the airship around it, right? Like, it's so invisible, it's hidden. You've even painted it black so it's even less visible. Like, the eye will naturally just glance away from it to look at the woodwork or to look at the big reddy turquoise browny mess of a of a hot air balloon that's carrying this thing along. What can I say, Kilgore? There's a lot to love and there's a lot to work on, okay, my friend? So let's just keep it going. Keep focusing in. You don't have to do the big Titanic builds. You can keep it simple and keep it small and keep it focused, all right? But keep coming back for more, my friend, because I always love seeing it. I always love seeing your work. Oh, yes. But enough, my brothers, because it is time. That's right, it is time to look at the winners from this month's competition. I know you all want to hear my dulcet tones as I talk about your beautiful entries, but sadly there is not enough hours in the day for me to wax lyrical. So let us bring this show to a close. Start the drum roll, my brothers, because the winner of Gaslands UK's Car of the Month competition for October 2023 is Adam Pollard! Yes, congratulations, Adam! Oh, so close to the sun so many times, but you finally crossed that finishing line, my friend. And a justly won October-themed build, what can I say? The absolute cream of the crop, the uber, the gross, super build that we've come to expect from you, my friend. And this journey has had its ups and its downs, but it's finally led to this placement. And honestly, mate, rock solid work. Absolutely rock solid work. I love what you've done to this Porsche 911. Honestly, when I first saw this, my mind was cast back many years to the misty days of 2020 and March's finish entry, also by an Adam Fold's 14K inspired build from the Death Race film. And honestly, mate, if your build reminds us of the car of the year winners of the past, what can I say? You're in the running for this year, my friend. Oh, yes. Honestly, you have done some fantastic work here. I love all the modifications to the Porsche 911 body. The barrel is just beautiful, a wonderful work of art. Taking the spigot, taking the exhaust, the engine blower from Zynga Industries to turn that into a giant oil slick spigot. Wonderful, absolutely inspired bit of creativity there, and I love it. And that's a bit that we all have and none of us use because we all go, oh, it's a bit too big for my average car. Wonderful use here, and I'm going to be copying that myself. The body modifications, raising that profile, these enormous chunky tyres, and all the treads are pointing in the right direction, which is always a tick in my books. Honestly, wonderful work for this month. It was unanimous amongst the judging team. Like this was a swing and a hit straight out of the ballpark, my friend. Honestly, it has been a long time coming, but welcome, my brother, to the Hall of Fame. And enjoy the vast amount of gifts that are now raining down, metaphorically speaking, from the sky from Modelmatic UK. All the wonderful cars and chunky tyres and bits that your heart could ever dream of is on its way to you, my friend. Oh, yes. So honestly, congratulations, Adam, and I look forward to seeing you take on November and December's challenge, because you are in the running now for Car of the Year, my friend. This year we could see 2 Adams winning. Oh, yes. But it is not just Adam and first place that we are here to talk about today. No, we also have second and third. So I can tell you right now, my friend, that in second place we have the one, the only. I often mispronounce the name, so I do apologise. That's right, we are talking about Pierre-Louis Auder and his wonderful Pisswasser entry. I love it. I love the beer response unit that you've made out of this Porsche 911. Honestly, what an inspired build. What an inspired... you got the giant pretzel on the back. Oh, mate, this is next level stuff. And it's so nice to see. You see, when you tone it down, when you just focus in on a single build and you give it your full undivided attention, you come out with something just absolutely stunning, my friend. Honestly, like the black and the yellow work so well together. I get that the logo's tongue-in-cheek, but you keep that sort of corporate branding through the flags, through the uniform, through the beer stein in the driver's hand. This is so good, mate, honestly. And I tell you what, I cannot wait to see what else you come up with for the rest of this year. So enjoy, my brother. Enjoy the bits that are on their way to you from Modelmatic UK. And finally in third place, and I bet you didn't think you'd win on your very first attempt at entering this competition. Oh yes, that's right. I'm talking, boys and girls, about the one, the only Aurelian Wood and his absolutely monstrous brewing siege tower on wheels. Oh yes. Oh, congratulations, my friend. I mean, what have I not already said? It is a absolute beast that you've presented here for us for this competition. and in 4 weeks, no less. It is a work of art. So what can I say? Enjoy the third place, enjoy the prizes, and I look forward to seeing what else you come up with for the rest of this year, because as you all know, the year's not out yet. As October ends, so November rears its head on the horizon. As always, can I say a massive thank you to our sponsor, Modelmatic UK and John Irvine. As always, your prize sponsorship is so incredibly generous. Alongside that, can I just give, as always, a massive thank you, shout out to all of the members of the admin team, because without their hard work, this wonderful competition and community of ours would sink into the sandy dunes of the wasteland. So, as always, a massive thank you to Matt Reeve, Colin Harvard, David Bousset, and Darren Phillips. And of course myself, your host, James Hall of JH Miniatures. Thank you all for watching, my brothers. I will see you all in November's Car of the Month competition. Auf Wiedersehen, Wastelanders.